Come on, Jake, give it all you've got. Oh, hey. You're a little bit early, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and get started. Thanks, Jake. Great match. I'll see you next week. Okay, so my name is Shawn Lambert. I'm 22 years old, and I'm a senior at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, where I've lived for the past 8 years. Today I'm going to show you some amazing artifacts, such as human remains from some forensic cases that I've done, artifacts of each North American time period, and I'll be drawing an artifact for PCI's laboratory method. But before we do that, I think I need to change, so I'll see you there. Okay, so now we're here at the University of Alabama here at the Laboratory of Human Osteology. This is where we got to work with some faculty members to help curate some human remains and to actually help with some forensic cases. Okay, so now we're going to look at some skulls. The first skull being a male, about 40 to 50, and before he was donated, he was autopsied. And we know he was autopsied because his skull was cut so they could analyze his brain. Alright? And the reason that he died was there were 2 fractures at his diaphragmatic bones. One being on his left, right here, and one being on his right. And my next question was, how did he get these fractures? I mean, it's really rare to get fractures of the same type on both the diaphragmatic bones. So I looked more closely, and I noticed that he actually had been shot with a 12-gauge shotgun right above his supraorbital ridge. If you look closely, you can see all these indentations of where the bullets hit. Next, we're going to look at a male who is a bit older than the first, probably in his early to late 80s, and back in the 1950s, he had a lobotomy done, which is really, really interesting because we don't see this much here. But a lobotomy is where they would cut pieces of the skull out so they could relieve pressure of the brain. And we have one on the right parietal bone and one on the left parietal bone, right here. And we know that he lived through this. Not many people lived through lobotomies, especially in the 1950s. We know that he lived because we know that the bone started to heal on both sides. This one healed more, so he lived several years after this lobotomy was done. Alright, this is just a little bit of what I do here in the osteology lab, and next we're going to show you some awesome artifacts at the lab that I work for. Okay, so now we're at Pan-American Consultants, where I work at the lab in field tech for the past year. Today we're going to look at artifacts of each North American time period. The first period is called the terminal period, from 12,000 BP to approximately about 10,000 BP. And this is the paleo going into the archaic. This is a steatite. It's gorgeous. It's an ornate piece. It's really rare because you don't get to see many ornate pieces from the archaic times because they just didn't have time to do these things. The next period is called the archaic period, and this is from 3,000 BP to 1,000 BP. And the first artifact we're going to look at is called the Savannah River projectile point. This is a really nice projectile point. It's got a great excurved blade with a nice incurved base. Okay, so the next period we're going to look at is called the Woodland period. This is the time from 3,000 BP to 1,000 BP. It's called the Depper Checkdown. This is a rim sherd, and what's really exciting about this piece is that it has something called the mending hole. Now, a mending hole is when the Native Americans would drill a hole on one side of the crack and then drill a hole on the other side of the crack in hopes that the crack would continue. This can signify that it is a very great special pot, but we can't be for sure. Okay, so now we're going to look at the last period called the Mississippian period. And this period is from 80 850 to 80 1500. And the artifact from this period is called a Lamar complicated stamp. I have been sorting through over 10,000 other pieces of pottery to find the one that matches this vessel. It's really difficult, but it's a great challenge. So this ends the lab portion of the video. Finally, I will be drawing an artifact at Moundsville for one of PCI's laboratories.
Okay, so now I'm going to be drawing a Gary projectile point. So watch closely because it's going to be pretty fast. In May of 2008, I got to go visit Egypt. I got to go to Alexandria, Cairo, Mount Sinai, and El Sharm. This really was a great experience for me. However, going back to Egypt and being able to learn where Dr. Zahi was and working for the History Channel and experiencing all of Egypt's cultural heritage would be an even more enriching adventure. I've never formally studied Egyptology, but I think it would be a great challenge. So thank you for considering me as an archaeological student, and I hope to hear from you soon.